From the outside, the gleaming mansion looked like paradise. Expansive glass walls reflected the morning sun, marble steps led to double golden doors, and luxury cars lined the driveway like trophies. But behind those walls was a storm no one could tame. 3 children, whose every scream could be heard echoing through the long hallways. They were known among staff as the Impossible Trio. Every nanny who walked through that door walked back out before sunset, some in tears, others furious, all defeated. Their father, Daniel Grant, one of the wealthiest men in New York, had resources to hire anyone he wanted, but money couldn't buy his children's trust. Their mother had passed away 2 years earlier, and since then no one had been able to reach them. Then came Clara Evans. She wasn't glamorous, not polished like the others who interviewed before her. She walked in with scuffed shoes, a second-hand dress, and a smile that carried warmth instead of perfection. She didn't arrive in a car. She took the bus and walked the last mile to the mansion. When the head housekeeper eyed her skeptically, Clara just said softly, "I know I'm not what you're used to, but I understand children." The staff exchanged knowing looks. They had heard that line before. No one believed she'd last until evening. The 3 children stood waiting like judges in a courtroom. Max, the oldest at 11, crossed his arms with a glare that could pierce steel. Sophie, 9, hugged her teddy bear like a shield, her eyes daring Clara to take one wrong step. And little Oliver, just 6, hid behind his siblings, peeking out with suspicion. Clara didn't bow, didn't overcompensate, didn't bribe them with gifts. She simply knelt to their level, looked at them with eyes that carried no fear, and whispered, "I know you miss her. I know you don't trust me, but I'm not here to replace anyone. I'm here to listen." For the first time in months, the children didn't immediately lash out. They didn't smile, but they didn't scream either. That silence was the first crack in the wall they had built. The hours that followed tested Clara in ways no training manual could teach. Max slammed doors, Sophie refused to eat, and Oliver threw a tantrum so loud the security guards outside covered their ears. Any other nanny would have called for a driver to take them home. Clara didn't. Instead, she sat with Oliver on the cold floor until his sobs softened, humming an old lullaby her grandmother used to sing. By evening, something strange happened. The children weren't magically fixed, but they allowed her to sit at the dinner table with them. It wasn't acceptance, it was a truce. Yet for Daniel Grant, who had been watching from the shadows, it was more than he'd seen in 2 years. Days turned into weeks, and Clara's kindness began to work where discipline had failed. She never forced them to behave, she understood them. Max, who refused to do homework, one day found Clara sketching rockets in a notebook. "You draw like that," he asked, his anger slipping. Clara handed him the pencil. By the end of the week, Max had drawn blueprints of his future spaceship. Sophie, who hadn't spoken about her mother in months, one evening handed Clara her teddy bear and whispered, "Mom gave me this. She used to sing to me when I was scared." Clara hugged her tightly, tears filling her own eyes. That night, Sophie asked Clara to sing her to sleep, and Oliver, the most withdrawn of all, started leaving little notes on Clara's chair. Crayon drawings of stick figures holding hands, labeled me, and you. The mansion that once echoed with chaos now carried the sound of laughter. The staff stopped counting the days she survived and started admiring her. Daniel, always busy with meetings and investors, found himself lingering at the doorway, watching his children rediscover childhood. But the true turning point came one rainy night. A thunderstorm rattled the house, lightning flashing across the sky. Oliver woke up screaming, terrified. Clara rushed to his room, wrapping him in a blanket. Max and Sophie soon joined, all 3 children huddling around her. Daniel, standing unseen by the door, heard Clara whisper, "You're safe. No storm can take you from me. I'll stay right here until the morning." And she did. She stayed all night, her arms aching but never letting go. In that moment, Daniel realized something profound. Clara hadn't just become a nanny, she had become the heartbeat of his home. She hadn't conquered his children with rules or bribes. She had given them something no one else could, the courage to be loved again. The next morning, the 3 children, without being asked, ran into the dining hall holding Clara's hands. For the first time since their mother's death, they looked happy. The Impossible Trio had found their safe place, and the woman everyone doubted, the nanny no one thought would last a day, had done the impossible. She healed their broken hearts, one act of kindness at a time. Daniel could hardly believe the change unfolding before his eyes. For years, his home had been filled with silence, tantrums, and slammed doors. He had buried himself in work to cope with the loss of his wife, telling himself he was doing it for the children, building a future for them. But in truth, his fortune meant nothing if his children's laughter was gone. And now, somehow, this woman, this ordinary, soft, spoken woman who arrived on a bus, had brought life back into the house. One Saturday morning, Daniel came down for breakfast and stopped at the doorway. The scene was unlike anything he had seen in years. Max was teaching Sophie how to fold paper airplanes. Oliver was giggling as Clara tied a napkin around his neck like a superhero cape. And the table was filled with pancakes Clara had made from scratch. No chef, no catering, just the smell of warm food and love. When Clara noticed him standing there, she smiled. "You're welcome to join us, Mr. Grant." Daniel hesitated. He wasn't used to being invited into his own home like a guest. But when Sophie tugged on his sleeve and whispered, "Daddy, sit next to me," his heart softened. He sat down, awkward at first, but then Max pushed a paper airplane toward him. "Bet you can't make yours fly farther than mine," Max said with a grin. For the first time in years, Daniel laughed with his children. As weeks turned into months, Clara became more than a nanny. She became the bridge between a grieving father and the children he struggled to reach. She reminded Daniel what truly mattered. Not the boardrooms, not the billion-dollar deals, but the little faces waiting at home for his love. One evening, after the children had gone to bed, Daniel found Clara sitting in the living room, sewing a button back onto Oliver's shirt. He sat across from her, studying her quietly. "You've done something no one else could," he said, his voice low but filled with gratitude. "You gave my children back their childhood. You gave me back my family." Clara shook her head gently. "All I did was listen. All they needed was someone who wouldn't leave." Daniel's eyes softened. "That's more than anyone else ever gave them, or me." It wasn't a grand confession, not yet, but it was the beginning of something neither of them expected. Months later, the mansion was unrecognizable, not in structure, but in spirit. Where silence once ruled, there was now laughter echoing through the halls. Where loneliness lived, love had taken root. Max's sketches filled the study walls. Sophie's singing carried through the garden, and Oliver's sticky handprints decorated the kitchen cabinets. And Clara, she was no longer just the nanny. She was family. One spring afternoon, as the children chased each other across the lawn, Daniel stood beside Clara watching them. He leaned closer and said, "You were never just meant to care for them. You were meant to be here, with us." Clara looked at him, tears brimming in her eyes, but before she could respond, Sophie ran up, grabbing both their hands. "Come on, we need you for the family picture." And there it was the moment everything came full circle. The photographer clicked the camera, capturing the billionaire, his three once impossible children, and the woman who healed them all. Their smiles were genuine, their laughter real. For the first time since loss had shattered their lives, they were whole again. The house that had once felt like a palace of glass and emptiness was now filled with warmth, belonging, and love. A love Clara had stitched together, piece by piece, until it became unbreakable.